Of all the parenting videos that we have here on the channel, one of the questions that comes up a lot is, how do I manage my anger with my child? By the end of this video, you're going to have some clear ideas about how to do just that. The first step here, obviously, is to understand what anger is. Where is it coming from? How does it start? What is going on in my own mind? I've taught in many of my videos that metacognition is an extremely important skill that we have as human beings. Now, cognition just means thinking. If we put that right here at this level, metacognition is a higher level. It's thinking about thinking. Notice that you can do this. This is really important because metacognition creates a space, and in that space is where choice exists. Anger doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like a reaction. It feels like an automatic feeling that we get that we have no control over. Until you see it as a choice, it's not. So I invite you to think about your own thinking for a moment. And let's review some of the basics around anger, along with some tips that will help us to manage our own anger that comes up when we're trying to do the parenting thing. There are two primary components to anger. There's the brain component and there's the mind component. Now, your brain and your mind are not the same thing. Your brain isn't your mind any more than your little finger is your mind. It's part of your body. It's an organ in your head, and it operates according to neurophysiological principles. Your mind is you, okay? It's the you that's inside of that body that you have. And you have a brain, but you're not your brain. So this is what some people call the spirit or the soul or the agent inside of the machine. However you want to think about it, I'm making a distinction here between brain, physical, physiological, and mind, which is more spiritual and psychological. Now, with those two components in place, what's going on the brain level? Anger is a manifestation of what we call the fight or flight response. Your brain is wired to take care of you, to keep you safe. And one of the primary ways it does that, if there's ever a threat, is to respond or react immediately with a chemical response. A chemical response that causes your body to prepare to do one of those two things, fight or run away. The fight or flight response. These chemicals actually shut down parts of your brain that are in charge of thinking, logic, problem solving, and also some higher cognitive processes like compassion and empathy and forgiveness. Wow, that's important to know. So, from a brain standpoint, we've got to have ways that we can calm that fight or flight response. Understanding that, let's develop a healthier, more anger-resistant brain through self-care and calming exercises. By self-care, I mean take care of you. Get enough sleep. Make sure you're eating well. Have regular exercise. Take regular time for prayer and meditation and solitude. This is how you take care of the machine, including that physiological brain that's triggering the chemicals into your bloodstream that we know as the fight or flight response. When I say calming exercises, probably the quickest and most effective way to get there is through slow, focused breathing. Now, I know you breathe every day, right? But I'm talking about a very intentional practice. And I like to do it in this manner. You breathe in through the nose. As long as you don't have a cold or something, this should work just fine. In through the nose and fill up your lungs. Just stretch them and feel that. Now hold briefly as you feel the stretch. And while you're stretching, just check your shoulders and your neck. That's where a lot of people carry their stress. Just see if there's any tension there and loosen it up while you're holding for no more than 10 or 15 seconds. And then you release slowly through the mouth. Restrict the flow here so that it takes about twice as long to exhale as it did to inhale. Kind of like you're blowing out birthday candles. Okay, nice and slow, out through the mouth, and push it out. Push it out. Usually we leave about 30% of our lung capacity in there. Go ahead and push it out when you're doing this focused breathing exercise, and then in through the nose again. Nice and deep. And then you hold and stretch. If you'll do that for 3 to 5 reps, you're going to feel different. You feel different because you've just changed the physiological processes that are going on in your own brain. That's the key. So between self-care and calming exercises like breathing, we're going to address the brain component. Now, I mentioned that there's the brain component and there's the mind component. Now, the mind component has to do with how you're thinking. How you're thinking sometimes creates the threat that sets off the brain in the first place and has that chemical party starting in your body and in your brain. So on the thinking end of things, on the mind end of things, what's the key here? To understand how anger operates at a mind level, I think it's helpful to think of the mind as having a conscious and a subconscious part to it. Now, conscious means awareness. If you're unconscious, you're not aware of anything. Consciousness is awareness. Your subconscious mind, now sub means below, like subway, submarine, subcontractor. You get it? Subconscious, below awareness. This is below your awareness. And the problem arises with a little what if question. Okay, do you recognize it? And even the question itself triggers anxiety for some folks. Your subconscious is constantly asking, what if this? What if that? And the thing about your subconscious, it can't go without an answer. So it's going to come up with an answer even if you don't have a good one. And you got a pretty darn good imagination too. Your subconscious mind loves to answer the what if questions with, you can't handle that. That would be terrible, horrible, no good, very bad. And that triggers the brain to feel threatened. Chemicals squirt into your system and we're off to the races. So what we've got to do on the mind side is to answer the what ifs. We're going to answer those what if questions in a way that allows us to feel less threatened. Now, what does this have to do with parenting? Hopefully you're tracking all along here that your anger with your child has to do with expectations and has to do with the way your subconscious is handling some what-if questions, like, what if my child doesn't obey me? That freaks you out a little bit. You're like, well, they better obey me. Yeah, they might not, right? And that would be terrible, horrible, no good, very bad, right? Do you see how your mind is handling this? What if we were to change that up? What if my child doesn't obey me? Oh, that would be good. I know, that sounds a little crazy, but just play with it for just a moment. You're picking a position about this. Your position has you feeling angry. What if you took a different position? My child is making a mess. Oh, that's good. I know, sounds crazy, but go with it for just a minute. What do kids do? Well, one of the things kids do is that they make messes, right? What if you were to accept that? What if you were to remember who they are and how they're built? Little kids are supposed to make messes. Little kids are supposed to have these periods of defiance where they get right up in your face. It's what they do. The story that you tell yourself about that is extremely important, and that has to do with your mind. So let's hit a couple more tips. Understanding that our subconscious mind is asking the what if question. We want to answer that what if question more truthfully and in a way that puts us in a position of power as a parent. Saying things like, this is good. I'm right on schedule. My child is right on schedule. These kinds of phrases put you in a very different position as a parent. And notice what happens to the anger when you start to think in those ways. Now, a little word about perspective. Why? Why are you your child's parent? There's a lot of different answers that people come up with for this. But check it out. What qualifies you to be their parent? I know, right? It's going to blow your mind just a little bit when you step back and you realize that one of the primary reasons that you are their parent is because you showed up on the planet before they did. And why are your parents your parents? Because notice they're probably not geniuses either, are they? No, they're imperfect people as well. Well, what qualifies them to be your parent? Well, because they showed up on Earth before you did. You with me? You, as a parent, are in the middle of a whole string of people who don't have any idea what they're doing. And there's nothing special about you that qualifies you to be their parent. And that's not bad news. It's just perspective. We're all in this together. We're all trying to figure this out as we go. Our anger sometimes is tied to our own need to be a good parent. Well, you're a fallible, flawed human being, and that's not bad news. Accept it and see that you're in a string of a whole bunch of people who came before you and a whole bunch who are going to come after, and we're all part of the same human family. So let's give ourselves just a little bit of slack when it comes to judgment. You're a good parent. You are a benevolent, generous, loving parent. And you're still figuring things out. So as you give yourself that permission, you're going to feel less anger and frustration. And that way you set a model for your kids too. Because they're going to step up and take the parent position at some point, and your grandkids are going to be raised by them. We're all in this amazing string of humanity together. Let's be a little more tolerant and forgiving of ourselves, and that's going to help us to show up a little better with less anger for our children. I hope you're finding those tips helpful. You've heard me mention on other videos the Parenting Power-Up. I don't know if you've had a chance to check that out yet. There's a link right over there. And as you connect to that, you're going to see that Vicki and I have put together 18 different segments to power up your parenting. I hope you'll take a look. Her head was down, face locked onto